What is up, everybody? Mr. Purtis here. Welcome to Unit 7.4. We're looking at the communist revolution in Russia and the rise of totalitarianism, 1900 to 2001. Quick little side note before we start here. We're going to jump back in this video to pre-World War I and Russia, because you can't really understand what's going on without saying what's happening before World War I and Russia. And I mentioned in the World War I video that Russia gets out of the war early, but we need to explain what happened in Russia to get us there, and then we'll move Russia past World War I. A lot to do here, so let's rock and roll. So first thing, we're going to do a little contextualization. What was going on in Russia, what problems they were facing in the early 1900s. In terms of the contextualization, you all know what this is, and if you aren't tired of it already, you will be, and when this class is done, you will have dreams and nightmares of contextualization probably. But here's the deal in Russia. Here's the problems. Number one, they are not fully industrialized. If you remember from the reform and reaction in the previous time period, they attempted to industrialize their country, but they weren't successful. They had some level of industrialization, but they're not a fully, good word to use, fully industrialized country, meaning that most people are not working in factories. They have not made that shift. Most people are still farming, even though they freed the serfs. A lot of people are still kind of in this peasant type of situation. So, and those who are working in factories, which is a very small percentage of people, the working conditions are absolutely horrendous. If you recall, and if you don't, I'll remind you right now, Russia really failed to reform their factory system like we saw in Western Europe, because Russia is, number two, still an absolute monarchy. So, as we have these democracies in Western Europe that are giving people the right to vote, therefore they elect people who are going to change the working conditions, because most people are workers. In Russia, we don't have that. It's an absolute monarchy. There is no democracy, and the government just wants to industrialize as quick as possible, and they're not really as, they don't have as much motivation to reform these systems because there's no worry about being unelected. Number three is there's a lot of nationalist movements in Russia. Russia is this is Russia's territory that they conquered in the pretty much the 17, 18, 19, early 1900s, and this is the area of land that they have. This is a huge swath of land. The stereotypical view that I think most people have of Russians and what a Russian looks like, at least in the West, is people who are mainly from this area here. But if you come all the way over here into this part, I mean, the people who are in this region are more ethnically Mongolian than they are ethnically Russian. So you have this, and there's a lot of nationalism rising. So you have a lot of people who want to break away. Especially in this region right here in the eastern part of Russia. For example, like the Ukraine, which has been dominating the news over the past couple years. Lastly, they have heavy losses in World War I. So coming back to the World War I piece and kind of piecing all this together, there's a lot of losses in World War I. 2 million soldiers are going to die from, almost 2 million soldiers die who are Russian. We have millions of others who are wounded. It's a huge toll on the country of Russia, where people start kind of saying, why did we even get involved in this war that we are losing so many of our men who are fighting in this? So, and the reason they lose so many, just a reminder, is connecting back up to here. They are not fully industrialized, and they are fighting against Germany, which is a significantly industrialized country. So, while all of these things are kind of brewing in this pot, this is all the stuff that's brewing. And by the way, this is Nicholas II. We'll talk more about him in class. A new kind of movement is starting in Russia. Now, if you recall, in the previous time period, there was this idea of communism, this idea of Marxism. Karl Marx wrote in Germany about these industrialized countries in the mid-1800s, about the haves and the have-nots, and that the workers would eventually overthrow the owners and set up a society where everyone is equal. In Russia at this time, there is this rise of this group who refer to themselves as Bolsheviks, who are communists, and they are going to try and overthrow the government of this guy, Nicholas II, whose family has been in power for 300 years, the Romanov family. 300 years, that's longer than the United States has been around. That's a long time for one family to be in power. And this group, seizing on all of these problems, seizing on World War I, come up with a motto of peace. We're going to get peace for our country, land for everybody. So poor peasants who have been trying to get their land for years and even after serfdom, and bread, food for everybody. So we're going to get these three things. It's our motto. That's what we're going for. And they eventually rise and fight a war against those who are anti-communist. And there's this 4-year civil war in Russia. 8 million people die. The Bolsheviks take control, and in the process of all of this, when they kind of consider themselves seizing power, they get out of World War I in what is called the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which I showed you in the World War I video, where they lose that whole big piece of Eastern Europe. And if you don't remember, look back in your notes, and if you don't take notes, I don't know what to tell you. Lenin here, now he should set up a society where everyone's equal. Hey, it's communism, let's make everyone equal. But he's like, nah, bro, let me tell you something. As Vladimir Lenin, I gotta let you know, we're not ready yet for a society where everyone's equal. You have been trained to be kind of greedy capitalists. You're not ready to make everyone equal. You're too greedy. So what we're gonna do is, I'm going to set up what's called I'm going to set up a dictatorship. Just temporary, I swear. Fingers crossed, but I swear it's just temporary until we're ready to be fully equal. And I'm going to be in charge with my crew of Bolsheviks. We're going to kind of run things and show you what to do until you're ready to be equal. And he calls this the dictatorship of the proletariat. And when you're ready for true communism, then we'll have it. Now, I want to let you in on a little secret. It never actually fully comes to what it's supposed to be. And what we're going to see is kind of a lot of corruption throughout this Soviet Union or Russian rule. And Russia, like I'm kind of sneaking in here, is all going to become known as, they changed the name from just Russia to the Soviet Union. And they're going to incorporate little nationalistic areas into their country, which I will get to later, and call themselves the USSR, or the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. In Russian, that is CCCP. So if you ever see a cartoon or anything that has CCCP on it, that's how you say the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in Russian. And again, this is the first attempt of communism anywhere in the world. This is their symbol, the hammer, symbolizing workers, and the sickle, symbolizing farmers. So bringing farmers and workers together, united, giddy up. Here's the problem. They fight the Civil War, they take control, and then Lenin dies. And this is Lenin. His body is still in tomb. You can see it if you ever go to, I believe it's in Moscow. And then there's kind of this power struggle when he dies of who should take over this dictatorship of the proletariat in the Soviet Union. And there's kind of two options. There's this guy, Trotsky. I like to call him the mad professor. He looks like he is some kind of like dorky guy who's like experimenting in the lab, no offense to my science people, and like blowing stuff up. But he's actually the leader of the army. He's the one that helped win the Civil War, and he's Lenin's boy. He would have been Lenin's first choice. And then you got this guy here, Joseph Stalin. Stalin means man of steel in Russian, and he is the secretary of the Communist Party. And by secretary, I don't mean like he's typing up notes. I mean he is in charge of hiring people and bringing people in and like overseeing the kind of some of the day-to-day operations. Lenin did not want him to be the leader, but Lenin dies. And all the people who are kind of in the inner circle of the Soviet Union, because this guy is hiring everybody, are his supporters. So his supporters help bring him to power. So we're going to have this guy, Joseph Stalin, who is going to become the leader of the Soviet Union, or the USSR, whatever you want to call it, in 1924. And here are the characteristics of Stalin's Soviet Union. We're going to see a lot of similarities in this time period of the 20s and 30s when we get to the next video with Stalin, Mussolini, Hitler. There's kind of this rise of what are called totalitarians, and the term is totalitarianism, which is when one person has complete control over everyone. This is very, very similar to absolute monarchy. The only difference between this and an absolute monarchy is this person is not a king, and their power is not going to get passed on to their children. So totalitarianism is identical in practice to an absolute monarchy. You're going to have secret police who are going to spy on people. You're going to limit there's only one political party in Russia. You either a communist Bolshevik party member or you are nothing and you're going to be arrested. If we're going to spy on you, we're going to have a certain amount of people in our society who are spies. We're going to have spies at work. We're going to have spies walking down the street. We're going to have spies in classrooms. And they're going to try and find people who are saying anything bad about the Bolsheviks or / communists and say anything bad about Stalin. If we catch you, we will either put you on a show trial where we'll force you to admit your guilt, or we will send you off into Siberia to mine stuff for us in the harsh cold, and you'll spend the rest of your life there or until you die. We're also going to ban religion. Religion is banned, and the Eastern Orthodox Church is eliminated, which angers a lot of peasants. But we're trying to, if you get rid of, and this is not if you are a religious person, I'm not trying to insult religion here in any way, shape, or form, but if you eliminate God from the minds of people, the top person now is the leader of your country. So what Stalin and what the Communist Party's goal is, and they believe that religion was a made-up fantasy to begin with. So if we can eliminate religion and ban religion, then people won't be praying to God. People will be worshiping and praying to the leader. Anyone who is a threat to Stalin's power is sent to camps. The people who help Stalin take over here, these people who are his boys who help him take over, Stalin eventually is going to send them to camps and put them on trial and say that you're trying to overthrow me, so you're in trouble too. And that is how totalitarianism works. It is fear every single day that your neighbor is spying on you, that you can't say what you want, that if you go against the party, you can be sent away. And it is a society built on, all totalitarianist societies are based on fear. So you got this right here, death is the solution to all problems, no man, no problem. We got Stalin right here, kind of this big propaganda poster where Stalin is looking down at everybody. And then we got just the straight up basic propaganda picture. Also, Stalin wants to industrialize the country. He has 2 plans to industrialize. This is called a command economy. He is commanding what is being done. He is going to have 2 different plans. The first one is called a 5-year plan because it takes 6 years. I'm just kidding. It takes 5. And the goal is to set quotas. He says, hey, person who runs the coal factory, last year you made, I don't know, look at this, 64.4 million tons in 1932 of coal. Our goal is to create 300 million tons of coal by 1937. He sets these outrageous quotas. And if you don't meet your quota, he might arrest people in the factory. He might have people arrested in the factory. He might have the factory manager arrested. So everyone's scared, so they're working harder and harder and harder. Now, by 1937, they don't hit 300 million, but that's okay because they've pretty much doubled the amount that they've made. So in this case, they've made more based on these quotas because of the fear, and we're increasing production even though they don't actually meet the quotas and goals. There's also going to be a limit. They're going to limit the production and availability of consumer goods. They're not going to create things for people to consume like we know in the United States today in our consumerist culture where people want stuff like clothing. You're not going to have multiple outfits. You only have what is available through the Bolshevik government, through the communist government. And by limiting this, we can have our factories instead focus on these heavy machinery, steel, oil, coal, electricity. And that's going to be our focus on these heavy industries. Also, we're going to make collective farms. We are going to put all these farmers. Remember, we promised people land, and we gave it to them after. These peasants got their land when Lenin took over, and now Stalin comes in and he's like, yeah, about that. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to be communist in our farms. So you're going to lose your farmlands, but you're going to work together with all the other local farmers together on one big farm together. So you're going to be working with your neighbor. So instead of thinking of communism from the worker perspective, think about it from the farming perspective, where now we have one big farm in this entire town that you and your neighbors all work on together. Most people who are peasants hate this. They want their own land. They were promised their own land. Now you're taking it away from them, and it's going to anger especially wealthy farmers. And when you rebel as a wealthy farmer against the government, they're going to send you to camps or kill you. In the Ukraine, which was part of the Soviet Union, and the Ukraine, again, is right over here in the southwestern part of Russia. In the Ukraine, they are going to hoard their farm products and refuse to give them to Stalin. As a result, Stalin is going to go in and have his government take every single thing he can from those people. He does not like this Ukrainian rebellion. And it's going to lead to mass starvation of 6 million Ukrainian people. I'm going to say that again. 6 million Ukrainian people are going to die, the rough estimate, of starvation in the 1930s. That is the same number of people, the same number of Jewish people who are going to die in the Holocaust a decade later in Nazi Germany. So I just want to point that out. This is what starvation looks like at the time. Lastly, women's roles. So kind of the positive side of this is, unlike what we see in the Western world at this time, there's much more opportunity for women in the Soviet Union. He is going to legalize birth control, which is seen as a huge benefit to women who want to enter the workforce and want to prevent having children. Now, the communists allow birth control early on, and then later on they're going to switch it and make it so they want women to have more kids so they can increase their army, but it's another story for another day. They do have the right to choose their marriage partner, which is a huge deal at the time, and the right to divorce. So many Western countries had not implemented this at the time of the right to divorce your spouse. Also, many opportunities for higher education, for college, master's degrees, doctorates, to become a doctor. And almost all jobs are going to become open to women. These are some World War II Russian snipers. And then also you can see here we have this propaganda poster where the woman has the shovel in her hand and she's a worker. So that's a lot of stuff. People take whole semester classes on the Bolshevik Revolution. People take, 800-page books on the Bolshevik Revolution. I've just summarized it into 15 minutes and about 30 seconds. You got any questions, you write it down. You let me know. You know what I'm going to say. I'm out.